Hello, Lori Kathleen Clark here. Welcome back to my studio, and this is the second week of needle felted birds, where we're going to be looking at creating a Bewicks wren. They're quite prolific in this area. You can find them all over, even in residential areas, but they mostly like the brush and sort of openness near a stream. And they have this classic wren-like stance with their little tails straight up in the air. That's quite specific to this bird. They jiggle that tail back and forth when they're foraging for insects. So again, with the references, pulled out so many references so I could see him from the top, the bottom, the side, and underneath, which will help me in my creation. And then some of these really cute images like this one with him singing, her, him. They both look the same in this case, male and female. Again, I've taken a little time doing some sketches because that always helps me understand the bird more. If I have a hand to paper connection, it kind of helps me see it as it turns in space and see all the form and the specifics about each of them. One of the things you'll notice really on pretty much every image is this white eyebrow. In every single image, that's what's the defining mark, that and that tail. The tail is barred with black, but primarily it's brown on top, light gray underneath, with a little bit of a spiciness here and there in terms of tone and color. While I think this one's way beyond the normal, I think this is closer to perhaps a Carolina wren, but it's got a lot of rust tone in it here. Most of them, well, they'll be a little warmer brown. They aren't quite so rust. And in this case, it's pretty brown all over. So you'll get to pick your own combination of colors that work for you. Let's talk next about supplies. Included in this week's supply are a fresh supply of needles. This time I have color-coded them with nail polish. So what you see here are my needles from last week, but the needles I sent you for this week have the same color system, or pretty close. The one that's clear, you've got one that's clear, one that's kind of a pinkish color, and one that's kind of a greenish color. They're off a little bit, didn't have the exact same color nail polish, but the color system will be similar or the same. Then you'll have coral wool again. And I gave you two different kinds, actually. You can decide which you want to use. I'll probably start with mostly white, but in some areas I'll start with the color of the bird. For instance, this color, probably on the tail and the wings. I also included some gray coral wool that can help you. You could stack and hand card some of the other colors with it to get that distinctive gray undertone. There's a few different colors of merino wool top, and that's so that you have a full palette to play with in the range of the colors that we see, including the spicy color that, if you would like, you could add. And then black and white, you'll need a little of each, as well as dark brown, which will help you with the tail. So those are the needles and wool. The other things I sent were two different gauges of wire. This brown one is, I believe this is 24, and this is 22. No, I'm sorry, 22. The white is 24, and then a chenille stick. Those will be what we'll use to create our armature, and that's what we'll talk about in the next segment. In this week's session, we'll be adding complexity to our bird. We'll have some of the same principles and techniques we used last time, but some new ones as well. So to create an armature, this is the armature that we want to make for this bird. If you keep your references at hand, it'll help you so that you can see the approximate length of leg and what kind of toes and the length of the head and beak. But this is what we're after. So to get started, pick up your number 22 gauge wire, the heavier of the two that is dark brown. What you'll do is take that long one, like so, bend it at the center, and then you'll cut that in half. because it's too much. So you'll have some left over. Put it aside. And now take this piece, bend it in half, like so. With a ruler at hand, it'll help you measure these so that you come up with the same armature as I have. I'm going to go down at the 1.5 inch mark and bend. So that's that piece that I just bent is now 1.5 inches. And then I'll take this leftover piece and bend it again at 1.5 inches. So now I have 2 bends. And then I'm going to take it apart like so. And that's going to create this portion here that I'm going to make toes and put legs on, wrap the legs with. So that's the beginning of our bird. Because the feet are going this way, that's where the head goes. If you hold your armature as it is thus far in your hands, like you were about to get on a motorcycle and ride, okay, this is the handlebars. Lift it up. You're going to bend it 1/4 inch away from this fold right here. You're going to come up 1/4 inch to here. So I'm going to measure 1/4 inch and bend. And then I'm going to do that again. This should be bent down this way. And perhaps I should do this on a piece of paper so you could see better. Maybe even a blank piece. So now I have 1.5, 1.5, 1/4. And now I'm going to bend it again at 1/4. So I'll move it over, get to the 1/4 mark, and bend it again. This is going to create a little triangle. So this is going to be the back toe. So if I hold it like this, it goes straight out in front, and this little toe comes straight out the back. I hope that that's clear. It's hard for me to see on my camera because of the apparatus here covers up the screen quite a bit. All right, I'm going to do that again on this side. I'm going to bend it at 1/4 inch. And then I'm going to bend it at the next 1/4 inch. So I've got one bend right now at 1/4 inch from the foot, the leg. Leg, 1/4 inch out for the foot. And now I'm going to make this triangle by doing another bend right here at 1/4 inch. And I'll talk a little bit about the direction of your bends. I probably should have done that before you got started, but I bend them one way, you might want to bend them another. Think about how you would wrap something, and I'll show you what I mean in just a moment here. So now we have 2 feet, 1/4, 1/4, and then straight back for the back toes. And we'll try and make those bends exactly, what is that, 45 or 90-degree angles, so that they're nice and clean, not rounded. So in my case, I went that way because when I wrap, that's the way I go, but it's because I'm using this hand. It might be that it's not as comfortable for you to wrap that way. You might want to wrap this way because you're using your right hand. It doesn't really matter, and it's all about what's comfortable and more natural. The next step is to add the body. We're going to do that by bending this pipe cleaner chenille stick in half. You want to take the pliers and squeeze that point down because that's the end of the head or the beak. So it needs to be quite tight. Then you'll twist it just a little bit, just a couple times, down about halfway, leaving some tail. The next step is to measure at 1 1/4 inch, like so. I'm at 1/4 inch and I'm going to bend it down. That creates the beak and head. The next step is to bend it again at 2 inches, this time backwards. Now you've got the neck. These become the body. You do that by spreading them apart like handlebars again, because you're going to line them up with the handlebars of the leg portion. Wrap that portion gently around this brown wire once, twice, and pull out. And same on this side, once, twice, and pull out. Take those two pieces together, twist lightly, and now you have your tail. That's the body. You now have that much of the armature done. The next step is to put the wire on the legs and make toes. So we've gotten that far. So now pick up your 24 gauge wire. You'll cut that also in half, starting at the leg on one side or the other. Take that wire and wrap it, not super tight, but a few wraps on down the leg. We don't want to add a lot of bulk. And then when you get down to the toe, I like to spread the legs out a little bit and give yourself some room. Spread the foot out a little bit and give yourself some room. I'm going to go around the foot till I come out at the top here. And then I'm going to make toes, 3 of them. In fact, the first one is going to be 1/2 inch. So I'm going to bend back hard and squish it up at 1/2 inch. There's the first toe. Then I'm going to wrap it once around that crossbar of the foot. And then I'm going to come up and I'm going to make a 3/4 inch toe. This middle one is always longer. Come up, bend and squish, and then wrap it around one more time on that crossbar of the foot, and then make another 1/2 inch toe. Bend and squish. Now you have 3 toes. And now to connect the foot together, you're going to wrap around that, but the third leg of the triangle till you come back right at where the foot connects at the leg. So right at the join here. So you're going to have a toe sticking out the back. That's the brown part. There's a toe sticking out the back, and those 3 toes here. Now I can wrap my way back up the leg, but I'm going in the same direction I was going before. So it just kind of fits right in there in between the other wraps until I get up to the top, and I want to secure that wire so I don't get poked again. So now 3 toes, 4th one out the back, legs wrapped. Let's do the same thing to the other side. This is the other half of that white wire. I'm going to start by wrapping my way down that leg. Once or twice or 3 times or whatever it takes to get down to the bottom, but without piling too much in there, because you're going to come back up and you want to leave some space for those when you come up. You don't want to add any bulk. Get your foot spread out enough to where you can work well. So, but I have that little, what was a triangle is now sort of the open-ended, like a U shape. I'm going to come down to the end of the foot, and when I get there, once I get there, I can go around that crossbar, right across here, go around that. Once, and then come up. We're going to create a 1/2 inch toe. Come down and bend at 1/2. Squish it tight. We can squish them tighter with pliers in a little bit. And then again, wrap it around that crossbar once and make a 3/4 inch toe. Bend it and squish it. Come around that crossbar again once, and then another toe at 1/2 inch. bend it, squish it, and now you have to come around the other side of that foot, and I have less on this side for whatever reason. It doesn't matter, we just need to get it sealed up right here. So go around this foot and up the leg. And then we'll come back with pliers and straighten up our work. So now he should stand evenly. And if he doesn't, make some changes to whatever's causing him to not. But with his feet forward, that little toe in the back down, straighten him out so that he stands up straight. And now it's time to get those little toes squished up. Because we're about to felt them. Oh boy, right? This part's painful. I'm just going to tell you right up front. It's slow. It's probably the hardest part of the whole project, but get this technique down and you'll be able to use it for a variety of other animals besides birds. So we're going to squish that up as best we can. All right, we're ready to start to felt. So I'm going to pick up a color that is going to reflect what I see in the feet. They're just kind of a light gray, like grayish brown, like a cool brown. So I'm going to look through my fibers. And now on to wrapping the legs and feet. I've pulled off a little one of the lighter tones of sort of a beige of the merino top. I don't need very much at all. I'll just pull a piece of that out, but I want to card it with a little bit of this gray. So I'm going to split it apart, and I'm kind of working the gray coral wool into that merino. And the two staples are quite different, so we'll see how this goes, but it does create sort of a mottled look of a brown that what I see in the feet and legs. Now, I'm just going to pull a piece off here. I don't need very much. And then I'm going to take that and twist and pull at the same time, because I want a fine fiber. I don't want it to build up a lot of thickness in these legs. They're kind of wimpy, these little legs and feet. And I'm going to take this and draft it, pull it and twist it around the leg, all the way down to the bottom of the leg where it fits the feet. But I'm overlapping. I'm pulling tightly and putting it in layers that just barely overlap. Again, I'm not trying to build up a whole lot of thickness. I'm going to go around again a couple times here at the top. And this is where I should have probably mentioned earlier, you should have had your Swax heating device plugged in and have it melted, because it's going to really help us at the end here, at the end of the toes, when we get that far. Now, as I get to the bottom here, that's plenty thick. I really don't want to add much more to this. And as I twist and pull, I can get that to be thinner and thinner. Don't want to add bulk. And now that I'm at the very bottom here, I'm going to go around one more time and start to come up the foot. I'm going to go around the foot here, the whole foot, because it's going to be flat. And then out one of the toes. I'll start with this far right-handed one. And you might have to keep them spread apart enough to where you can successfully go around them. But you really want to just be able to taper off towards the end. Now this is going to run out probably just about at the end. But before I get to the end, I'm going to pick up a little bit of Swax so that I can seal that off. So just a tiny bit on the end, so that when I get down there, it doesn't pull right off the end. So it kind of nails it down. And then I can work my way back up the toe in that same manner till I run out, and I think I might have just. I'm trying to keep that nice and thin. It's really tricky. And then get it all the rest of the way up the toe if you have enough left over. If not, you can add more at that point. Now I'm going to add a tiny bit more wax. I don't want much because if you get too much too fast, it's going to get all creamy colored. And then give it a second. That was not very warm, that piece of wax, so it's going to be a piece of chunky wax. But twist that down, and then you have their first toe. And I can go on, I got a little bit of a nail like that I can paint later. And now I can add my next piece. So pull off another piece of that merino, that pale merino color, twist it, and then pick up where you left off, which in my case was right on the foot here. And then I want to bring it on around and wrap that toe, the big toe, the middle toe, out to the end. Just before I get to the end, I want to put on a little tiny bit of wax right on the end, and then work my way around that, and then towards the back, right back up where I started again, till I run out, and back around the next toe. Like so. There's some leftover, whoops, that broke off, some leftover from before. I'm going to bring that around to the other side and put a little wax there so it gets stuck to the foot and out of my way. All right, and now I'm going to go to the next one, the last toe. I need a little more of the merino top. Wrap it starting with, probably with the foot in this case, and then come and start wrapping right back around that toe. 2, 3, 4, 5 times, whatever it takes to get out to the end, almost to the end. Pick up some wax, tiny little bit, and go ahead and go on the rest of the way around. And then back up to the back of the foot, and then you're going to go around that back toe, and then back out to the edge of the foot and up the leg until you run out. And then twist gently to nail it. Now, I want to check that everything's looks like I want it to. It's a little bit thick right in the middle of the foot, so I'm going to squish it up a little bit. And then we can put some wax on there and do a little felting, needle felting. That's thinner, that looks better. All right, he needs some wax to kind of make him look more bird foot-like, and just a tiny bit at a time. Mine's not very warm yet, but it's warm enough. I just need to put a tiny bit on and let it sit for a minute. And then once it's kind of permeated the wool and cooled off a little, I can start squishing it up. Back around. All right, so now I'm going to pull out my foam block finally. I'm going to use my big, probably my 36 anyway. And very, very gently, because remember, there's a wire in there now. And you'll break your needle if you're not careful. So look for, find out where that wire is and know where it is, so when you're poking, you're not going to break your needle. And I'm just trying to felt this all down so that it becomes sort of unified. All the fibers are married together. And that it's kind of smaller than it is right now. It's very fat. And it may take a little wax, but let's just see how we go here. Let's get the other one done. I'll do it sped up and unedited. At some point later on, you'll probably want to come along and bend these toes so that they look like bird feet. Down like that. In this step, we're going to create the beak. So I see in most of my images, it's a fairly light with dark markings on it, and I think I'll start light, and we can always add a little dark later. But the beak is quite long, quite narrow, and in most cases curves a little bit downward. So I pulled off a piece of merino wool, about 4 inches long, and it's not very wide. I'm going to start at the head, the back of the head, and wrap my way down towards the end. And even though this is the head, it's fine that we're doing this. We'll add a lot of bulk later. But I'm just wrapping it as I go all the way to the very end tightly. I really want it to be tight in this case. And when I get to the very end, I want to immediately turn around and come backwards, back towards where I started, so that I don't add anything else to the tip. Just that one pass at the tip, but I'm going all the way back up again till I get to the other end, back at the head, and then we can let it go from there. Probably just pull it off. And now I'm going to needle felt it for a moment. I can go back and forth right here because that could get much bulkier. I'm going to needle felt it first, but again, this has got a wire in the middle of it, so be careful. I'm going to pick up my 38, the harder, coarser needle, and just work on either side of the inner piece of wire you feel inside that chenille stick. Just be careful not to push too hard if you're not sure if you're on the stick or not. The wire will break your needle if you're not careful. And then turn it over. We're just adhering it at this point. We're making sure that it's stuck together and won't come off in this next step. Now, I'm going to just really squish up that point. I want to make sure that it gets very small ultimately. Right now it's not very small. I'm just trying to make sure that I've twisted it to the very end, and then there's only just the one layer there because it has to be the finest of the whole beak, of course, because it's the point. So I'm just needle felting a little bit here and there, and then I'm going to put some swax on it. Now it would be good if we can get it flat because it's not round. But it is time to add that swax. And just a tiny bit of it at a time so that you don't get any bulk here. All these little fine points that, while they need this swax, this layer of wax, just a tiny bit, then let it cool a little bit so that it's permeated the whole thing. And now squish and turn because you want to get it very, very hard and pointy and flat if at all possible. Squish it flat. Just point, get the point, and then flatten it. And then we can come back and add some darker color, even if we do it with a little bit of paint. But the idea is that the lighter part would be harder to put on, and now it is lighter. And I'm going to just give it a tiny bit of a bend right there. And I'm sure we'll do other things to this as time goes by, and perhaps even a little more swax to really firm that up. But for now, I think it's good. So we can go on to the next step. And now we're going to begin the body, starting with this portion of his leg. So I pulled out this color because I think I want it to be that in that range. It'll be a little lighter ultimately, but I've taken my piece and cut it in half, and then I'm going to cut that in half, so about a quarter of that piece. And starting with that, thin it out, just pull on it, thin it out, and lay that down on the body, and then come on around the body and start to go down towards this bend right here. Drafting it out a little bit. Oops, that time it just broke. And then you're going to go back up towards the body. And we're going to felt that down right there. At this point, because he's still pretty bendable, you can spread him apart if you're getting into an area that's awkward because of the legs being too close together or something. You can spread them apart a little bit. At some point we won't be able to do that so easily, but at this point we still can. So that, since it broke, I had not quite done what I wanted to. I reattached it right about where it broke. And I'm stretching it as I pull it around his body again. I'm going to come down the other side now and go around this leg. So I kind of gave him a diaper, more or less. And then back down towards that crook in the leg. That's quite thick. So I'm going to pull and then back around the body again, like that. And wherever it ends is fine. Well, we're going to be adding more anyway. And now I can start to needle felt that. So I went around the body, around the leg, around the body, around the leg, and back up again, just enough to get it to all hook together. Just felting it very carefully because of that wire. Gotta slow way down right now. But it doesn't take much to get that stuck together. In a minute here I want to correct that that's no longer in the center. But now he has a little bit more to the tops of his legs, and we'll be adding more yet. So there's a good start. Make sure my bend is still there, and that the tail is in the middle, as is his body. And we'll set him down for a moment. And the next step, we want to add the tail. And so with that same color, and it's one of the other quarters, actually. I can split that again, about that thick. Pull on it a little bit so that it's not so thick. Go around the body again. Oops. It's kind of hard to get in and out of those legs. And then around the tail till you get to the end of the tail. I'm pulling tight. And then back towards the body. Keep wrapping until you get back to the body and wrap it around again, and then up to the top. So now he's starting to get some form. There'll be a lot more added, but this is the beginning. And we're getting that armature covered. I just felt that a little bit, so it's not coming off. All right, that's probably enough. Starting to take shape. Okay, I'm finally bringing out the white or off-white core wool. I'm going to pull a piece, just make a pull. So probably 6 or 7 inches, maybe even 8, depending on the staple. And then cut that in half, and maybe even in half again. And I'm going to start a little bit back of the head, down here at the neck, by the body that we've done so far. And then just start wrapping it tightly, pulling, and that pulled it apart. Pull and wrap at the same time, not so hard that you pull it apart like I just did. But we're wrapping it all the way up to the top of this head, and then going around the head until we get to 3/4 of an inch from the edge of the beak. So I'm at about 3/4 of an inch. That's all beak. This is head. I'm going to go around the head again, and then I'm going to go around the neck, and then around the head, and then around the neck, and so forth. I just ran out, so I'm going to pick up another piece, but first I'll attach this with my needle. And our goal will be to make it a nice tight wrap, not loose and sloppy like that. Okay, once you get it attached to the head, I'd also go down the neck, the rest down to where you started at the beginning of the body, where it overlaps the body. Just kind of neaten that up. Got away from me there a little bit. And then we'll come back and add some more to that head, but let's make this portion adhered. It's flying around. I'm turning as I felt. This core wool seems to be very sticky, more so than others, which in some ways is a good thing because it's going to sticky itself to this armature, but it's sticking itself to that felt as well. So keep turning. We're going to add so much more, but if I can just get that started well. Now, onto this fattening up the head, we're going to add a couple more pieces. We want the bulk of it to be up here, however. So I'm going to start again just below the head and get started at least pulling tight. This time, pull tight but without breaking it. Go up to the head and then crisscross and go down to the neck. So let me show that again. I'm going around the neck or the back of the head, and then I'm coming over the head. And so I'm going this way and then this way. So I go over the head and around the back of the head. And that starts to really add some shape. So felt that very well. And we'll go on to another section in just a moment. Well, he's starting to look a little bit like an ostrich or a pelican or something, but he'll get a body here pretty soon, and then he'll feel a little bit better. There we go. All right, on to the next step. So now on to the body, going the other direction, that opposite of what we just did. We'll start at the base of the neck this time. Wrap around and pull as you wrap till you get to the body, and then flip it over, spread the legs out, because you're going to go around the body until you get to the feet, the tail end here. Hang on, almost there. Then I'm going to have to add some more because I ran out. Let's just tack that down. And as a way to add bulk to this body, we're going to wrap it and crisscross again like we did at the head, but now we're going to do it at the tail. And by that I mean pick up your piece, pick up where I just left off. I'm going to go around the tail this way, come back to the body. Now I'm going to go around the body and go around the tail this way and back. And I'm going to do that. I'll pick up another piece here. Picking up where I left off, I'm going to go around the body, around the tail, around the body, around the tail. So you see I get that cross. I went this way and this way, this way and this way. And now I can attach all that. Now that I've got this crisscross on this side created and it's felted down firmly, I'm going to do the same thing when I flip it over, so the back's covered up as well. So I will take a piece and I'll start at the tail just because. I'm going to go around the body and then back over the tail. Around the body and then back over the tail. So I crossed over, see there? And then I just ran out, so I'll go ahead and nail that down. So I have that crisscross here and the crisscross on the other side now. So he's firmly covered and there's no longer a piece of chenille that's falling apart. He's got structure. I'm going to take another piece now. This time I'm going back up the head again. So I'll start from the back again here. And now go on up around the body and continue on up the neck. And we'll probably do that one more time just to give him a little more bulk here so he's not quite such a skinny little neck. But he's starting to look bird-like. Just a little bit. Still having to be pretty careful about that wire, but I'm not going that far in. So they're starting to really look like a bird. Hey, how about if we call in some wrens? I forgot that we needed to hear what a wren sounds like. Well, it's time to add some colors. So I pulled out that lighter brown that we have in the merino top, and that's probably about a 4-inch piece, and it's only a part of a piece. I took maybe a quarter of it off, or took about a quarter up from that piece. Again, get it on the front right here, right up against the beak, and then wrap it around. It's pretty slick, so I'm gonna have to get it nailed down pretty quick or it's gonna slide right off. And in fact, let's just start by nailing it down a little bit right there at the beak. Don't want to cover that beak up though. And that'll help us. Now I can pull against it and not have it fall right back off. And I'm just taking it towards the back of the head, covering all of the white. And then around, just in that same manner we did before. So let's get that nailed down right there. And we're gonna be adding other colors, so we don't have to worry that shouldn't be all brown. It's got some other colors. Now pick up more of that piece and do that same back and forth crisscross. So I'm going around the head, around the beak, around the head, and so on until I get that whole thing covered. And I'll bring in some other pieces till I get all the way around it. It's gone way past where it should there. So I'm just pulling it back and felting it in, so that it doesn't cover up, because he's got a long beak. I don't want that to be a little teeny tiny short beak. Split it apart. I'm going to start on the top of the head this time, since that's the part that keeps getting missed, because it wants to slide towards the beak. So over the head, around the neck, over the head, around the neck, and so on. And it's getting closer to being covered up now. And in fact, I may just leave it like that because it's modeled in our images, and I will be adding other colors anyway. But at least I've added something, so that you can start to see what colors land where. And now we're going to add a little bit of color to the back and to the belly. And hopefully not color from bleeding, because they've got several places that are. So I've taken a piece of the darker brown. This is going to be for the back. I'm going to create a little padding to round out his shape here by folding it over and then over again. So I've got this little double layer, and then I'm going to put this along the side here like this, and then we'll needle felt that down. It's going to be a little tricky because you're going to have to spread his legs out in order to do that, and because it's top, merino wool top, it's trickier to felt anyway. It's kind of slick and shiny, but you only want it to go halfway down the body, so it's not going to adhere very well. So I've hand carded a couple more pieces of that light gray and the light merino top, and I'm just going to fold that over and run it along this side here. Right up against that brown, and that's where the wings will go later. But we just keep adding bulk, getting him to be a little rounder birdie. And it's quite mottled, and I like that because the feathers under his belly are quite mottled. They need to be lighter, but we can do that when we get a little further along. And we've got that done on that side already, so getting there. In the next segment, we'll just take this a little bit further. Now we're going to do the underneath part of the neck here. It's really light on almost every example here. They're all very light. So I've just picked up the off-white core wool, about an inch of it, actually a little more than an inch, about an inch of it here. And then I'm going to felt it, flip it, felt it again, and then I'm going to fold the corners in to make a little triangle, like that, felt it again, and just keep flipping. But I want to make that quite pointed because that's going to go right up to the beak, underneath the chin. And then set it right down here on his neck, right up where the beak starts, and felt. Remembering that you've got swax and wire and everything else in there, and you're going to get stuck, and you're probably going to try and break your needle, so maybe go up to the biggest one again. But you want that to be a point. That's about right. And then bring it on down into the chest. More ways to fatten up that area. Kind of pushing it up as I felt, adding more and more bulk in there because it was quite skinny. And then we'll do other things along the side later, but let's get this fattened up in here. And I'm going to come back in with a little bit of the merino top because that core wool mesh is pretty flat and we do want it to be featherier. So I'm just making another little triangle of this merino top. Fold it in, and then that will go over the top of that, add a little more bulk and be a little featherier. So we'll just lay that right on top there. Gives much more of the look that we're after. And down into the belly with it because there's a lot of white down in there as well. It still needs a lot more bulk. It's got an awful long neck, but we're getting there. Right. In the next segment, we'll start another little layer on top of the head.